Hey everyone, so we are in the process of building a hybrid RX 480. The idea here is to somewhat replicate the approach that we took to our hybrid GTX 1080, and that is hopefully to stick liquid on here. Now we put one of these on the GTX 1080 around launch day. This is an Asetek cooler, and it's got an extruded, this is a brand new one obviously, extruded piece of copper here that helps the GPU cooling. I'll explain that more in a second. Before getting to this content, all of this is brought to you by Origin PC and their new Origin Chronos gaming PC, which is customizable, upgradable, and now shipping with the RX 480. Okay, so this copper extrusion on the cold plate, this is actually very important and is just part of why the EVGA version of hybrid cards performs sometimes 10 to 20 degrees Celsius cooler than competitors that use a flat cold plate. And this is not a liquid cooler, but the idea is the same. When there's a flat cold plate like this one and not an extrusion, liquid coolers are actually considerably worse with GPUs, and we explained this in some of our content in the past. A lot of it has to do with curvature of the surface and things like that, but we won't go into that too much here. So I put one of these on the 1080. It improved the thermals more than 100%. That's a percent difference value. Down to something like 18 degrees Celsius delta T from, we were near 60 Celsius with the original cooler. So it was a big deal, and it allowed us to get about an extra 100 megahertz out of the clock, but we were limited by VBIOS at that point, and it was still worth doing. So we're doing that here. I've taken this apart. Part one shows the teardown. If you're curious how this card pulls apart, it goes back together something like this. Very, very simple design, exceedingly trivial to take apart, and that's pretty much all there is to it. Then there's a shroud somewhere. The shroud just goes back on like that. This is a completely new PCB. The existing products out there do not necessarily work with it. The mounting points, these are the mounting points that we care about. These are very similar to the R9 380 and the 370 cards. And as you can see, this goes on the back under the plate. So the mounting points are similar, but they're not the same, and that means things might not work. And also, the Z height of this GPU, if you can get an angle of that, the Z height vertically is only 1.5 millimeters, and it used to be 1.9 millimeters. So I think we'll be good and hopefully won't need a shim, but we'll find out very soon. The holes are almost lining up, so we might be able to make that work. Let's look at some of the other stuff here. What is this? That is a tiny thing. So, you remember I was talking about flat plates versus extruded ones. This is what a flat one looks like. That looks like it might barely work with this one on the bottom left. What do we need next? I need to make sure this can mount to the thing. Let me. Okay. Thermal paste. Adam Savage was just talking about this in one of their videos on Tested, which is a channel I really like. I forget what he called it. Maybe knolling, laying out all of your parts like this. Definitely helpful. Oh, I see. That's where the thermal pads go. I guess let's make sure, before I start sticking that on, let's make sure it'll actually work. I'm tempted to remove this plate and put the EVGA one on there, but we'll worry about that later. Okay, so I think all the screws will line up with the back plate, so that's good. So now we just have to see if the screws will line up with the pump and if the pump will make contact to the surface. Okay, all this effort was just to see if we could get the pump to mount to the mounting points on this RX 480, which are different from what it's technically specified for per the instructions. I think we're okay. I think we just have to install this properly now that we know it fits. So I'm going to take this all apart and get it together correctly. Let me just see out of curiosity if we wanted to connect these could we? Let me measure something. This is just digital calipers. 47.62. Let's lock that where it is. Oh, that looks very good. How many bolts? 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this is the same mounting. Then the question is, do we want to go through the pane? Because I think it drains the liquid out. Let me make a phone call to Asetek. Calling Rob Teller. Hey, I'm building an RX 480 hybrid. I have a question for you. Is it possible, realistically, to replace the cold plate on the Arctic cooling one with the EVGA one? Or will fluid come out?
I don't think you'd even see much of a temperature difference for a lot of hassle. Sorry if I'm sound distracted. I'm in the middle of an Overwatch game.
That's fine. That's fine.
I could have them make you some special, oh my god, I just killed the entire team. I'm sorry. We could have them make you a couple AMD like flat ones and then extruded ones.
Okay, cool. Well, for now, we'll do this.
All right, man.
Peace. Okay, so after a quick call to Rob Teller at Asetek, we found out that even though these, it probably, you could actually put that on there, realistically it's not feasible because liquid will leak and we have no good way to seal that and prevent any liquid from leaking out. So that's no good. We're not going to switch this. This will not mount to the RX 480 because it's just not the right size. So I'm going to get this out of the way. We're not even going to come close to using that this time, but we're going to try and do something with it in the future. Maybe adapt the cold plate or something. Because this cold plate is still built for GPUs, not CPUs, we should still see good performance. And that's the main concern, is those CPU CLC cold plates have a different curvature, basically, just because the way the CPU hotspots line up with the cold plate. This will work. So let's go ahead and put the thermal pads on here for VRAM modules. Like this. Well, that's good contact. I like that. This is well designed. I don't think we want this on there. This is a thermal pad from the original. Which thermal paste do we want to use here? These instructions are actually pretty damn good. They do make recommendations for how much to use, which is always nice. They're recommending half the compound, which seems like an awful lot, but we'll see. So half the compound would be about here. Yeah, that's about half. And it is okay to bleed over some on the GPU. It's not as sensitive as a CPU when it comes to that sort of stuff. Which way do we need the tubes oriented? I need to know that too. That puts that in the top right, which would have us like this. Okay, that makes a lot of sense actually. That won't collide with the VRAM. Dang it. It'd be nice if there were a catch on the other side other than the CLC. Closest. Yeah, I was thinking about if there's a way to do that. Yeah, put it so it's like on the corner but not gonna fall off. Hold it there. Is it aligned with the screw? Damn, I'm gonna apply pressure, so push back. Yeah. All right, I think we're good. All right, so I had to recruit Andrew to help get 2 of these on because, and also a clamp, because that thermal paste is slippery for one, and also these springs are very high tension, and also it's difficult to align the screw with the liquid cooler. So we're good now though. These are all on and off. I can remove this clamp now. That thermal paste, by the way, the recommended amount of thermal paste was good. They recommended half that tube. Turned out to be just about perfect because of the way it spreads so easily. It's a very, it is not very viscous. There's some thermal paste that's more viscous than others, especially if it's diamond compound, and that is not the issue we had here. So because these are spring-loaded or spring-tensioned screws, they will stop you pretty naturally once the screws are about as tight as they should be. And it's a case of Monkey Tight, not Gorilla Tight. Once you start getting free spins like this, check this out. See how we're getting a spin? Now that would, of course, strip the screw if I kept doing that. You can apply more force and really torque it down, get a couple more turns in there, but that's not what you should be doing. There's decent contact. It looks like it may actually need to be pulled down a little on this side, which I can do by tightening the screw some more. Can you see? It's on this side. In there, it looks like it's almost missing contact. So even if I apply more pressure here, contact's a little better. Okay, I could probably tighten the screws some more. Let's see how that is. Fully fastened. Let's try it. Contact looks okay over the center of the GPU. I'm looking at the borders and I'm seeing like a hair's width gap at the border between the copper and the silicon. See if you can try and get that. See if this board's flexing. Oh, that is definitely... See it? Let me see if this Kraken kit has a copper shim. No. What about this? No shims though. Let me call Rob again. So there's like contact completely to the silicon, but not completely to the top left edge of the substrate.
My guess is that, I mean, and as it should be, the silicon should be a little bit taller than the substrate. I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll put the VRM heatsink on and we'll be able to plug it in tonight probably.
You should do like a live thing.
I was considering streaming earlier, but maybe for the next one. But cool. All right, I'm gonna finish this up. Thanks for the info.
No worries. Looking forward to it.
Yep. See it. We're making full contact with the silicon with the cold plate. So the cold plate itself is touching the silicon completely. We're good there. The border of the substrate, which is got that sort of metal plate on top of it, there's not 100% contact specifically in this corner, but we think that's okay. And I was speaking to Rob from Asetek, who thinks that's okay because it's not the part that gets hot. It's not the silicon. So I think we're okay. That is the one thing to note. We may look at that for performance, but otherwise everything looks decent. I've backed off the tightness of the screws a little bit, given that information, because we're still making 100% contact with the silicon, so there's no reason to overstress the socket and cause the PCB to warp. So at this point, all we've got to do is figure out the VRM aspect of this. So I've got VRM fans they've given me. This is, ooh, that could actually fit, but it'd be a bit silly. Okay, so they're saying to put this like up here and then just tilt it so that it cools the VRAM. Or not the VRAM, the VRM. These components I need cooled. So I think we're gonna use this stuff for the VRAM with that thermal adhesive. Let's see how those look. Oh, cool. It's already got adhesive on it. I just have to peel it. So can we stick this to these? Oh man, that is actually really neat. I like that. The same goes for these things as it will go for the VRM heat sinks that I'll apply in a moment, which is make sure there's no contact to any electrical components or it could short something. There's one module in there I'm not going to be able to access. That kind of sucks. I'm not sure the best way to deal with that. That one will get hot. So these will go there. This will mount on a pole up here and be positioned like that. So this is super ghetto version of a VRM cooler. We'll pivot this on that pole to cool the VRM components. And then we're going to put these on top of some of those VRM components. And let's see, what do we want it on here? Guess I'll... Yeah, because the way the fins stick up, the air that gets pushed down will go through there and dissipate the heat. So these will go on each one of these. That's a freaking lot of those. 11, 12. All right, let's try this. Let's get these applied. Is this? Yes, this is actually a thermal pad. That's pretty cool. I like that. This is what my, what was this? I think this was like $6 or $7 on Amazon, these things. And that's pretty damn cool. I like this. This last one, I'd love to get this on there, but it's obviously just not going to happen unless I were to cut it in half. Okay, so next, oh shoot, there's another one too. That'd be kind of janky. So the question is, do we want to cover half of this with one of these? Yeah, this will be fine. What else were we cooling? AMD. Really intense cooling in this area. So that's the next most important. We're gonna have to use this stuff. This is thermal adhesive. It's basically glue. We're gonna use that to mount these. These are VRM aluminum finned heat sinks. We've got a lot of them with this generic kit for the Hybrid 3 Accelero cooler. And I'm gonna mount one of these like this on every one of these hotter components. That's okay. So lesson learned, that was a lot of adhesive. We don't need that much for the next one. We're gonna do a lot of these. This is a pretty freaking extreme mod. I feel like I'm playing a city builder game. City Skylines. Dang it. Nice. Okay. All right, so those are on. Now the next part of the process involves mounting a fan to a pole, which we can stick through any one of these holes. So I'm gonna attach these to, yeah, I think we're gonna have to let it cure. We're gonna let these VRM heat sinks cure overnight. It takes about an hour for the thermal adhesive to cure. I'm going to give it longer than that, and we'll be good to go to test this thing. All right, so we let this cure overnight. We're back now, and I've made a few changes to the design while thinking about this, letting this thing dry. So first of all, these are now cured. They're good to go. This is the VRM cooling. But I did have one thought, and that is I would like to use both fans that were included with this. Actually, two thoughts. So I'm going to clamp this to the, and this is a little crazy, but we're going to clamp this to the expansion slot bar on our test bench. And then this will be mounted like that, and that'll push some extra air down to make sure we get the hot air we really don't want in there out of there, and get some more cool air into the VRM and to some of the components down here, down the channel that do not have a heatsink on top of them. So that's one change. That will happen on the test bench. And then the rest of this, my thought here was we're going to mount this fan like that, but I am not going to plug this into the GPU. So we're not going to plug this into the video card. We're actually going to plug it into the power supply, and that'll give us an extra couple watts off the card when we're overclocking it. So we'll talk about that more in part 3. But let's go ahead and install this thing. This is a pretty simple process. We're going to just send the screw through here. This goes on over the screw spot over here, the hole. All right, cool. So that's it. That's what we got for the video card. This will, I'll pivot this based on how I feel about the thermals as it's being tested. We're not plugging into the GPU, as I said, so that means the VRM fan speeds will either not be reported or will be reported as astronomical numbers. And the reality is it'll just be powered by the PSU, so it should be 100% power. That'll help us with some of the overclocking attempts. And then for acoustics, I might plug it back in to the video card when we're taking acoustic measurements for the auto pre-overclock configuration, but I'll let you guys know if we do that. So that's it. That's the RX 480 hybrid. Check back for part 3. This thing will be in the bench and running soon if it still works. And at that point, we'll see if we can overclock it further, see if the thermals are better. They certainly should be. And we'll look at acoustic properties and maybe throw an FPS chart in there with the new overclock setting. So as always, links in the description below for more information. Thank you for watching. Patreon link to the post-roll video if you want to help us out directly. And I'll see you all next time.